What's going on, guys and gals? My name is Chris Tondevold, and this is Ambition Radio. This is a podcast where I interview cool people doing cool stuff, trying to figure out what makes them tick, what keeps them motivated, and being able to balance their life, career, family with the pursuit of their passions and their dreams. This week we have Brandon Nichalson from the bands Molldyer and Last Known Yeti. We sat down at his recording studio called Instru-Mental Records, where he has recorded numerous bands and I have seen that place grow alongside his music for the past decade or so. So it was really great to be able to sit down with him, hash everything out. Molldyer just released a split EP with Brothers Creeper, which you'll know from the previous episodes. Very great band. Please check them out. Naomi the bassist, is releasing a zine in January, so that'll be really great. Speaking of releases, Last Known Yeti will have a release December 8th for their new EP. They will also have a release show at the Brass Rail down in St. Mary's County. Molldyer will possibly be releasing some material in January, so I'm very, very excited about that. If you haven't seen them live, do yourself a favor, check that out. They're fantastic. Thank you, everybody who has listened so far and given me feedback. I really appreciate it. The more feedback, the better. That way I can try and make this whole bit better. Really want to be able to work hard and get you good material. Anybody that you want to see on the show, anything that you want me to cover, please let me know. Hit me up on Facebook at Ambition Radio or at the email ambitionradiopodcast@gmail.com. Please rate and review on iTunes, subscribe, all that good stuff. Feel free to listen to Spotify, Google Play, the whole bit. Thank you. Enjoy. You were just talking about how you don't really listen to music while you're writing anymore or playing in bands, right? That's what you were talking about?
Yeah, it's really difficult to write original guitar lines and to not be influenced by the stuff that I'm listening to on the radio in general anyways. And I'm going to still listen to music. But I'm an album guy. I like to sit down and listen to a song from the start to finish. And the albums that make it from start to finish are the ones that make the cut. So it's like the music that really matters to me. I really don't sit down and enjoy it as much as I should while I'm playing and writing in bands. I have to keep them separate, I guess. So I haven't had a lot of time recently to sit down and listen to music, and it's sad. It makes me sad.
Yeah, so you don't really enjoy the music as much anymore because you're focused on what you're playing. It sounds like then, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a plague. It kind of goes with what I'm doing. I can't write the next Blink-182 album. So if I bought that album when it came out and start to finish, it might influence me, and I don't like to do that.
Yeah, and then most of the guitar parts have already been written, so you want to try to do as much different stuff and just noodling on it that you can, right?
Yeah, I want to pull something out of my magic hat, not out of the album that I've been listening to over and over again.
Has that always been the case for you when you've been in bands? Because you've been in bands forever, it seems like, because you were drumming first and then drumming with Joy Radio, and now you're playing guitar in two different bands?
Yeah, that's right. Yeti and Last Known Yeti and Molldyer. Even when I was young playing in Joy Radio, that was one of the first bigger bands, and I played in a couple bands before that. I listened to a lot of music as I was younger, and then when I started playing music and playing along to music, I really learned the ropes that way. But when I started writing in Joy Radio on drums, a lot of the stuff that I was listening to came through as a pure influence. Like you can tell that I was listening to a lot of Led Zeppelin and a lot of System of a Down. Like it's right there in my drums, and I noticed that, and it wasn't a bad thing. And I still do that to this day. So the things that influence me most are still going to come through in the music, but I like to make sure that they're the things that I truly love before they bleed into my music life. So yeah, with Joy Radio, I for those like heavy years where we were really writing a lot and playing a lot, I really wasn't listening to music as much as I was. And then my life is just busy anyways, so I don't even want to go there yet. I do a lot of different things, and I really don't get to sit down and listen to music.
That is sad. Because that's kind of like my whole life. Like if I didn't have music, I don't know what I would do.
I'm always looking forward to the next thing. There's not going to be a bad moment in my life, because as soon as, I get the chance and some downtime, I'm going to do all these things that I love. I don't get to.
Now,
I'm going to listen to some music,
Right. And with you going and playing a lot of the local shows, a lot of just shows in general, do you find anything that's around you in your area that you're looking at, you're seeing from these other bands influence the way that you're playing at all?
I'd like to say yes, and really give it to all these guys, because they're great and amazing and they are inspiring, but I don't think that I take away any musical content. I think what I take away is a sense of caring for the people that we're working with, and I pick up a lot of that stuff. And I don't think that I don't think you're gonna hear me playing Traver's guitar from Shallow Deep.
Right.
I'm not gonna steal his riff as much as I'm gonna steal his vibe, because he's a good dude, and those kind of things are good. But I don't know. And actually, the same thing bleeds into sitting down and listening to the bands that I love that play around here too. I don't sit down and listen to music.
That's crazy.
I've listened to their stuff several times on the radio while I'm driving.
Right.
But my experience of learning the words and listening to it on repeat, probably been about 7 years. Gotcha. Since I really sat down and thought about some music.
That's crazy. Okay. So tell me a little bit about where we're at now. We're in Instru-Mental Records, which is a studio that you've been trying to build for the better half of a decade.
Yeah, and I'll go a step further and say that I've built it. I'm building it. Try is the first thing that you do, but once we've done more than just try. We've really started this process, and unfortunately, it'll never be finished being built. So,
because you always want to put new toys in there.
I'm gonna keep building the studio until I die. But so I was young, playing Enjoy Radio, and in high school, and technology had really gotten there, and people can record at home nowadays. So I started off with a bunch of dollar store mics, talking about Radio Shack stuff, and recording to a mixer that went into the headphone port in the front of my desktop in my parents' house. They let me play in their living room until midnight or later. I mean, I was in high school. These people made me who I am.
Yeah.
If I wouldn't have done all that, I wouldn't have gotten good at music. I probably would have gotten discouraged, and I'd probably listen to a lot more music now. Actually,
right.
But my parents saved me from that. They were really tolerant with me. They let me do that stuff, and we started recording, and we put a vocal mic on top and on the bottom of a snare drum until we found the right sound. And eventually I found out that it's a lot easier than that. You don't have to overthink the mics. You just have to learn where to place them right.
Right.
But yeah, I've learned a lot of stuff, and it's all been an experiment. So I'm toying with mics. I'm trying different random things and trying to do fun things. It's interesting to me. There's a ton of people out there that are all about radio quality songs, and the bass has got to be thumping, and all the electronic noises that you hear in music today, and all of this other stuff. I am more into the acoustic, like what we actually create with I like to put a microphone on something before I like to put a USB in it.
And for you I think one of the more unique things about you is that you've been recording and learning how to record alongside with the different bands that you've been a part of too. So you've grown musically as you've grown recording wise too. Yeah, it's actually been a great thing. Like, I guess if I break it down, like all of the bands and the guys I was working with and who I was when I was playing in that band is whatever character or role I played. If I was a keyboardist or a guitarist or a drummer, they challenged me to get better at that instrument. But all the while in the studio, when we sit down to record stuff, they were challenging me to deal with all of their BS and get recordings done. And we were always successful, and things always came out. But I'm happy with this weird avant-garde, trashy sound that we make in the studio. It's something different. I kind of cherish what I do. Right.
I like to lay down, cut into some wax.
Yeah, because you just released the split with with Molldyer and Brothers Creeper.
Yeah.
Right? So can you tell me a little bit about how that process worked for you?
It went really well. It was amazing, actually. Brothers Creeper, that band is amazing. Those guys came in here, and they were humble and modest and all of this stuff, and then we turn the mics on, and I've worked with a lot of different people in the studio, and the first thing that people do that they don't admit that they do is they get nervous. And it part of what I learned how to do here is to be a therapist, to actually make people feel comfortable to do what they're recording. And those guys showed up, and we went to record them, and not a word. They didn't say anything. He said, put it on this BPM, and I turned the click track on, and they rolled, and we didn't talk. They were more professional than they ever could have admitted to. I don't think that they knew that they were that awesome, and they were.
And that's fun because they're really just goofballs on stage.
Yeah.
So you get that kind of that both aspects of them, to where they put on this great show. They're huge showmanship. And then the fact that they can actually go in, crank out a record, because they've been doing that for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that you see both sides of it has to be pretty rewarding for you too.
Yeah, I mean, I was happy to be there. Like, I'm sitting here at in the control room where we're at now, and looking over this window, and I mean, if I had a cup of coffee, I was just sipping on it, acting real cool. But these guys did everything. I mean, they came in here, we set it up, and they just flourished. And they do that in everything they do. They're really talented people. We did, and a lot of people spend a lot of money on recording time. So do I. Those guys came in here and recorded a cover that they released for Scooby-Doo. It was called Terror Time. That song was awesome. They did that, and two songs that we put onto that split EP, and I only had hot mics on for 4 days at 4-hour runs. So we're talking about they did this stuff in under 16 hours.
That's pretty impressive to get it all done.
I mean, we got together a couple of times after that, and we did a lot of mixing and editing. That kind of stuff drags on. I won't count up those hours, but it wasn't much. And these guys threw it together, and they did their part before I could blink. I mean,
was there a big difference between recording a band like that and recording Molldyer, where you have a lot more dynamics into it?
Yeah, by dynamics you mean myself and Sebastian and Jake, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We have a little bit of a different experience when we're recording. Those guys are brothers to me, so I mean, they come in here and we record, and we work things out, and we're experimental. So we do a lot more playing around in the studio, whereas those guys come in, they know what they're recording, and they do their job.
Right.
They play the songs they came to play, and we do our little bit. But when I'm recording engineer and I'm also lead guitarist or whatever it is, I'm gonna play around and have some more fun. So it's a little more of an experiment when those guys get in here. We'll make those shrill highs and those low lows and make the song sound weird,
It's like True Witches, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've done that in everything. I mean, Joy Radio has a lot of old recordings, and they're just off the wall. And you go through, we've talked about re-releasing and putting out some remastered tracks because I was in high school and I did some of that. But the songs were great, and you listen to some of it, and it's just harsh and crisp, and some of it's weird. But it's all experimental, and it sounds cool. So I get to do that with Molldyer more than I would ever force my weirdness on someone like Brothers Creeper. Not that they wouldn't like it. I just probably weird them out. Who knows?
So I'm trying to remember now. So it was Joy Radio, and now we have Molldyer, and we have Last Known Yeti that you're being a part of.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me a little bit about how you write for those three different bands? Because for you, obviously we talked about how you don't listen to music. Apparently that's a thing, and you just take everything from your head. But are you being able to balance between your different roles between all the three different bands? Because with Joy Radio, you were just basically drumming and being that back piece. And then I remember seeing you drum and play guitar at the same time, which is still nonsense
doable
to me. Yeah, it's still nonsense to me.
I was playing the lead line too.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. So
in a coffee house in 2006.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about your different roles and how you balance that out a little bit.
So I guess the first thing I do is when I'm doing any project is I figure out what that role is. Like, what am I supposed to do? What am I doing here? Like, so with Molldyer, I've got this thing that I do. I might bark a little bit and howl at the moon during that set. But there's a stage presence that I've put together. And I actually, as a performing artist, and this is something I'll say to anyone else that's in the field, when you're practicing, when you're rehearsing at home, you practice songs, and once you've practiced them and figured them out, then you start rehearsing them and running through a setup. when you start rehearsing, you need to start practicing your stage presence. So I'm in my garage all alone, bobbing my head around, skipping around, and acting foolish. I may look stupid then, but it looks well practiced when I get out on the stage.
Yeah,
So.
and you'd look at like a lot of the pop stars that learn how to dance and sing at the same time. I imagine it's kind of the same thing because
the rocker in me wants to laugh at that all day. I mean, and I do laugh at that stuff all day if I see that. It just, to me, I think I almost make a mockery of it because of what I've been taught and what I think. But the truth is I'm sitting here doing the same thing. I mean, I call it something different. Like I'm headbanging and I'm slinging my guitar around like I'm chopping down trees with my
But you're not missing the guitar notes. You're not missing it. Nothing's being sloppy unless you make it sloppy.
Yeah, and I do that too on purpose. That's what I'll tell you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, how am I going to be able to bend this G note just right and head bob and prance around on my feet like I'm a wolf all at the same time unless I practice it, you know?
That's gotta be a fun film.
I got to put a howl in there too,
Yeah,
While I'm doing that, I got to howl at the moon, and but you were saying all of the different brands, the bands, and actually they are brands. There's an image that I've put together for Yeti, and it's more of a studious guitarist. Like I'm playing lead over there, and I've got my bow tie on. I'm gonna headbang and get into the music, but I'm gonna kind of plant my feet a little heavier where I'm standing and do that lead guitar thing that people do. Twiddle around on my axe, but it's a different stage presence, and there's a different voice that I'll pull out for that. It's slightly different. I sound the same, who knows? But Yeti on guitar and Molldyer on guitar, I probably sound similar between the two different bands because I'm Brandon on guitar, and that's the stuff that I end up writing the music I'm in. So I separate them with a stage presence and a feel, but essentially it's all coming from the same core of a musician, so it's somewhere inside of me, whatever, so Joy Radio on the drums, it's a little bit different. The drum set is an extension of me, and I just kind of flail around like Animal from Sesame Street, and it comes out with something sounding really cool, and I've always been able to play with numbers weird in my head so I can make some weird drum lines, so it was just me acting weird.
Have you found with the bands that you've been in where one represents your true self more than the others?
No, I guess more so over time I've probably found how nobody really represents me more than I do. Any of the bands that I'm in, like one day, guys, I'll write some of my own songs and I'll go do my thing, singer-songwriter style, and that'll probably be me, best represented by myself. But who I am in Molldyer, or who I am in Last Known Yeti, or as a drummer, I mean, all of those things are what they are. I'll never, as the rhythm guitarist for Molldyer that does the vocals that I do, I've found my place in that band and I put my piece in, but it's not the epitome of everything that I'll ever write. So, I mean, Last Known Yeti, I put my heart into those lead lines, but I don't think that I'll actually say that. I don't think that any of them grab me better than I do with myself. If I was going to write my own music, it would probably be a better example.
Gotcha.
Me grabbing myself.
Yeah, it's always a fun time, right?
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. So with you being in those two bands too, you're playing shows a lot, right? So you're recording, you're playing, you're rehearsing. How do you juggle all that? A, and then the B with that is how do you try to consciously think about your presence both locally and in a bigger, more, not nationally, but not just your local scene, trying to get up to Baltimore? Because right now we're in St. Mary's, and St. Mary's is its own little pocket. And I've talked about this before on some of the other shows, is that it's very much its own little pocket of society where you can get sucked in and you can get stuck down here. So do you think about that with both of your active bands that you do now?
Yeah, and there's a balance that the band finds. So between me and the guys that I'm playing with in whatever band we're talking about that day, how much do we want to play locally and how much do we play locally and afar. So we'll travel out to Baltimore and DC, things like that in our general area. Maybe to sum it up with like, hey, I can pretty much make the Delmarva area in a day drive, but we're doing this on our own, man. We're pumping our gas into the car, and we're not getting paid to drive to these places. So realistically, I've always thought that art was made in the studio. What we do on stage and our performing, that is an art as well. So you've got to kind of represent both sides of it. So we try to spend a lot of time recording. And the flow of the year kind of takes me into the studio with different bands at different times. We all have family lives that we live too. And then we try to balance it with we like to spice it up and do a couple shows in all of the areas as much as we can. But we're just a bunch of dudes with day jobs here. We're all doing the best we can. And you know, we're not going to be jumping on jet planes and flying to Japan.
Right.
So my focus is actually more so in the local community, and I'll say that like I want to start small. My main focus is right here in St. Mary's, of course, and things have been growing and happening. But then my heart is really tied to the whole Tri-County area. The people that we all work with here are spread out, but we're all working in the same general area. If you're from Southern Maryland, you know what I'm talking about. Like we're all here in the armpit of the U.S. and no one else is really affecting us.
Right.
So then from there we get out to Baltimore and DC and some of these places where we're hoping to snag a new listener or find a new fan, and that's not where the people in Baltimore are going on the evenings. You know, when you drive up there on a Thursday night, that you're not going to be playing for Baltimore. You're going to be playing for the people that come and support you.
Right.
So you're going to be playing for your fans. So when it comes down to it, I think that the community down here has been growing, and that's helping everybody in that community. And I think that soon we're going to have festivals popping off here that have 500 people lined up in a field to see you play, where we can drive to any state and county, but we're relying on a built-in scene. So you got to hope that your booking agent actually knows people that come to this venue, or you have to spend a lot of money to bus your friends out across the country, and that's difficult. Like, you know, we grow together locally down here, and then my dream scenario would be that these guys that are working really hard down here to do good things would actually grow to the point where we're taking and filling out a place in Baltimore and bringing our scene with us. And I've played those shows, so we've played a couple of those venues in Baltimore where, you know, initially it's a pay to play, and then by some whim of luck, everyone we know wanted to go to Baltimore that weekend or had nothing going on. So, you know, we actually bring like 15, 20 people up to a place like that. You actually were one of the dudes that I tricked into coming out there.
Tricked, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I came in, I think the last song of your set.
That's your fault. I'm sorry. But, you know, we have really great days like that, and my Picture Perfect is doing that. I don't want to waste the gas money just to go get, you know, we have a great stage down here. We have good venues down here where we can get the good photography and the great video and light work. So they're actually removing the need to drive to Baltimore or DC. We are trying to get our name out there, and I think that if other communities were growing and maturing the way that I've seen it happening down here, that you would see some people from that local vicinity actually going to that bar to see some decent bands because they trusted it. And I think that maybe we broke the trust in our fans in these areas, or they just don't know us. But, you know, in time, I'd love to see every local area showing out for some of their original artists. You know,
Right.
You never know who's going to be the next great songwriter or what. And right now, as far as the radio goes, my opinion is the stuff that you guys are hearing that's been like handpicked and selected and corn-fed for you in America is not necessarily the greatest artists and songwriters. Like, there's a lot more stuff that's just not even, it's not rippling the system. We can't get our names out there. It's too many of us.
Do you also, because you're what, almost 30?
Yeah, I'll be 30 January 11th.
So do you, welcome to adulthood, but do you ever kind of think back and somewhat regret or look forlornly on the fact that I haven't toured, I haven't really been able to get out maybe over up and down the East Coast to the West Coast? Because I think you've been mostly local
It's true. I mean,
Right.
I've been in this area, and there's this dream of becoming an artist that everyone sees in the movies, and I never really. That was never really my passion, so I never felt like I was ever missing anything by not jumping on a bus and wasting all this time. I've actually, someone lit a fire under my ass when I was a little kid. You can edit that out, sorry. I was 18 years old and things got serious in my life, and time is very, very valuable. It is constantly slipping away, and I'd love to go play in North Carolina if we know that we can meet some awesome people down there. And we would. Wherever we'd go, we'd find some great people in whatever community we're playing in. But my time was of the essence. And so I kind of had to find a good balance and be realistic. I'm trying to do recordings, and I'm trying to get my name out around the local area. And that works. It'll grow in the other areas, and if I ever tour, I'll tour. It's not like I don't want to. Yeah, sure,
Right.
I'd do it. You got to pay me a lot of money to rip me away from my day job.
Yeah, and
To anyone listening to this, it's got to be a big number.
I also think for you, you're in a unique position where you have kids. You've had them for a good portion of your life, right?
Yeah.
So, especially your music career, so you really have to come at it with a different perspective of, I can't just be in a van and tour because I have to be able to support everything else.
How
that's
effective
happening.
is it really? You
Right.
jump in your minivan and you drive all of your equipment down. We've seen the meme, and I'm just going to bring up modern, society. $5,000 worth of gear into a $500 car for $50. Yeah, no, I was cooking dinner. Like, I had to do something else. Like, I was busy that day. Sorry I missed out on that great experience. I'd love to do it, but I'm picking and choosing the things that I put my heart into, and I'm spread thin already. Frankly, there's not much more of me that I can divvy out. I'm a busy guy, so I had to learn to decide, is this going to be a good idea? Like, is it worth it for us to, we did great at Soundstage. That was the show, I think. I don't know if that's the one you had come to,
Yeah.
but we did great at the Soundstage show, and the show was awesome. And if that guy hit us up, this booker that says he does promotions and you sell all your tickets for him, when that guy hits us up, what do we do? Go play the next weekend after that? We just had a great turnout at Soundstage. It doesn't make sense to me that we would go back to Soundstage the following Saturday if we just did really good the week before. So it's kind of like, as opportunities present themselves, you gotta kind of know your battle and pick it. Don't sign yourself up for stuff that isn't going to really pay off.
Yeah, and I think it's something that a lot of people don't think about, and because you're in a unique situation where you have to, life has made you pick and choose your places of success and failure and basically calculate a risk, where a lot of people don't think about that. They think, okay, I need to go play as much out as possible, and I need to go out and get my name out there, where you can really balance that out.
There's a little risk in that. I mean, you're going out, you're getting your name out there. The worst thing that could happen was you find a new fan. I mean, what are you going to do? Make someone hate you so much that they blast
Right.
you on Facebook? I mean, I was forced to have to find a different way to weed through that. So I had to be picky, choosy because I had to. Whereas street teaming it for the rest of my life, I could do that. I could get my name out there, but I had to pick those battles as they came. So, you got a lot of stuff to do. You got to prioritize.
Yeah, and I think it's something too that when you are a young band, that's all you think about, and then you misstep and oversaturate your market, right? So we were to your point where if I just had a good turnout in Baltimore, why do I want to go back the same or the next weekend and try to do it again when everything kind of came together? I have to be able to give myself time to promote, give myself time to plan, give myself time to connect with the fans that were just there and try to get them back and let the word of mouth spread a little bit, which I think is kind of the thing that you think about now. We were talking off mic a little bit about playing so many local shows and how that is sometimes a detriment. It is fun to go out there, right?
Yeah.
You just let loose. There are shows where you don't have to take yourself so seriously,
Of course.
and just jam out. But if you're in a place like yourself where you've been recording your bands, you've been part of all these bands, it's been, half of your life at this point, and now you have this other piece where people your age now are having their kids, their family, their career, and they're not thinking about that when they're 19, 20.
Yeah.
You were basically in that position to think about that.
Yeah, so maybe I learned to fret the adult life kind of makes you fret things in a good way. You got to plan, you got to be prepared, and the zombie apocalypse is coming. But you can get oversaturated. You can overplay your friends. I mean, your friends are coming out. Your fans better be your friends, or you're not doing this right, man. You're joking yourself if you don't care about the people that care about your music. But I mean, I've watched the numbers for a lot of years. We're looking at 16 years of me playing shows down here, and I was pretty consistent during that time frame. And when I say 16 years, I don't mean that I stepped on my first little stage. No, that was probably a couple years before that. Like, I've been pretty consistent around here, and I'm a numbers guy, so I'm counting heads and not. You've got a name, and I know your name, and we're good friends. But when I notice you come out to my show, I also notice you the next time you come out, and I kind of will tell you that your friends are going to come out and support you, especially if you do good music, and especially if they're your good friends. Both of those things factor in how much they care about you and how good you play. But be the best musician in the world. They got a family. They're not going to come out every time. So I've watched the numbers, and I'd say that people are going to come out once every 3 months. Generally, every person that is one of your fans that cares about you, you'll see them out once every 3 months or so through the quarters of the year. Your winter cabin fever, you want to bring them out that time. You want to bring them out in the springtime because the flowers are blooming. I thought that made sense, and I've been watching this, and so as far as St. Mary's goes, I want to play in St. Mary's 4 times a year. Then I want to make sure I have a lot of time to sell those tickets and advertise to all the event coordinators out there. Give us time. We will bring people to the show, but we got to plan it, and they got to plan it. Their kids have got to find daycare so they can come watch us play music. We got to be realistic about this. If you want us to sell those tickets for you and to fill your house and bring our crowds, then you got to let us have time to do it. But that means that I can go hit the Dunkirk area somewhere in either of these 3 counties 4 times a year. That's 12 gigs. That's once a month. And if you spread them out right, you're hitting different crowds properly, and you're not overplaying or oversaturating what you're doing, and you're helping them to convince their friends to come out the next time, 3 months from now, when they actually have time to plan for it. In the holiday season, we just had a really great turnout at 5 South Black Friday. There's certain times of year where you get people out. So there's a lot of other factors. So it's not just the saturation and how much they come out, but Black Friday, everyone wanted to get trashed. They wanted to go see their friends. They wanted to have a night out after all of that fun family time. They wanted to get away from the turkey dinner and have a good time. So they came out, and you have people that are in town that are normally out of town. Those kind of things factor in too, but you have to do it all strategically, and you got to kind of pick your battles. So if you want to go play those shows at Baltimore, you got to make sure that you're bringing those same people that you would normally bring out to one of those shows you're playing somewhere else. It's a hectic balance.
Yeah. Did you ever think about, because your music career has grown with your actual career and your family, so everything. When I think about you, I think it's a unique situation where I've seen you mature in pretty much every aspect of your life, as your music has been consistent, as your recording's been consistent, as everything else has fallen through. So did you ever think to yourself that maybe I need to not do music, maybe I need to focus on this, or maybe I can feasibly give up, maybe take a step back in my career to pursue music? Or how have you even balanced those aspects of your life out?
Yeah, it's actually a daily struggle. So I'm a really analytical person. So I'll tell you that there's there's algorithms in my head. So I'm trying to figure out, if I'm gonna have band practice tonight, or if I'm gonna cancel on the guys because I don't really feel it. And then maybe my son's just got the new game that came out. Call of Duty 5 came out last year. we're gonna spend some time together, and I got to figure out every day like what priority am I gonna take care of, and to be honest, I've never actually thought of getting rid of anything. So what I try to do is do the things that are in front of me that I can do. When my sons are playing games and they're feeling. My sons are 11 years old. We're talking about preteens. So, when they want to talk to dad, we're going to spend some time together, and I might make the band wait for an hour, and
Right.
I'll walk out and they'll be waiting for me warming up, and they'll make the face, and they'll suck it up, because they're not going to, they're all great dudes. They're not going to argue for a second that I would be spending family time. I do dinner with my kids every night. We have a happy family. I work a full-time job, so I'm gone 9 hours, and they're in daycare, and when I come back, it's either I'm working on things in my house, I'm working on music, or I'm spending time with my family. But sometimes that's Netflix and chill. We'll put on some Ninja Turtles, and sit down on the couch. But, most of the time I don't do that stuff. I guess I got done confessing to everyone that I don't listen to music as much as I want to. But
Right.
I don't sit and watch TV. I put Star Trek on and fall asleep. That's my TV experience. So I don't do a lot of that stuff. When I do, it's mostly to try to spend time with my family. But you got to stay busy all the time.
Yeah.
And this isn't even like we're just like the tip of the iceberg here. There's so much stuff that I have on my to-do list.
Right.
I'll never run out of things to do, and I would be unhappy. I would just be a sad soul if I wasn't booked up beyond this year. I'd be a sad person. So the fact that I'll never run out of things to do keeps me moving.
Is that part of your sense of self-preservation and to keep moving and to not be stagnant, or?
Yeah, it's survivalist as hell. I edited myself a little bit there. So yeah, it's survivalism here, man. Like I've got to find a way to beat down this Great Depression that's settling in on all of America. And I think that, the numbers are scary right now, what Americans feel like. We're sad people right now. There's a lot of depression going on. We all fight it and feel it, but it's survivalism. I stay busy because I don't want to let that transcendental set in. What is it? No, existential dread.
There you go.
I can't speak right now.
That's
Words.
all right.
I'm not a lyricist either, so don't worry. You don't have to worry about me writing crappy songs.
Yeah, it was one of the more harrowing times of my life, and I say that very cheeky and very very snarkily, where I did lose my job. I was laid off, and I was unemployed for 3 months, just on my mom's couch, and it was one of the worst times because you want to be busy, you want to go out and do things. When you're not working, at least for me, I don't feel like I'm like myself. So it was always a part of me where that staying busy, keeping going forward and keeping moving was always a part of me as well, to bury other stuff that I was dealing with, to keep my head going, to not have to think some of that stuff. When time stops, that's a little dangerous sometimes, I feel like.
Yeah, you don't want all that stuff you've been running from to catch up to you. I mean, if you stop and think too long, you'll find yourself in a hole. I mean, we all have the struggles that we've lived with and grown through, but they're still there. Like, and it's the fact that you're pushing on in life in general that shows that you're okay and you're coping. So you've done great and you're moving on with your life. But I mean, I've been there. So I didn't lose my job, thank Christ. But at one point I was living on my own with my 2-year-old sons, and a roommate fell through with it. They had a better opportunity, so I was left with, now I've got to move back home with mom and dad, and it was difficult. Like I love my parents; they've been great to me, but there was a certain, I had hold of the reins when I was in my own place. I was raising my children
Right.
the way that I wanted to, and I was taking care of my house as much as I could, but then you go back home to your parents, and it's just back onto autopilot like when you were a kid. And when we were kids, we took advantage of how much time we had to process our thoughts.
Yeah.
How much downtime you have when someone else is making food in the house or someone else is, is shoveling the driveway. I mean, you spread it out. Like when you're living with a family and a community, like there's less for you to do. So that's more time to think about all the stuff that went wrong. So, yeah, stay busy. We all have hobbies and they're healthy. And, if I didn't stick to my hobbies, I would have probably been a terrible father. I love my sons and I would have tried to been good to them, but how good can I be to my family when I'm giving up on the things that I love and the things that bring me happiness? What kind of happiness would I have to give back to them? Because you have to remember those hobbies recharge you. So that's
Right.
giving you the positive energies and then you're happy now because you do the thing that makes you happy and you're able to give that to the people that you love. If you don't, and you fall into depression, you're just dishing that out to the people that you care about.
Yeah. Do you think that's one of the underlying reasons for you to keep going and keep motivated to pursue music, to pursue everything else that you're doing now?
No. I mean, I love my family, and that's all one thing. But the thing that motivates me to do what I'm doing here is just because I'm stubborn, man. I'm not going to give up. This has nothing to do with any kind of thought pattern. This is just pure. I'm going to do this. I'm going to wake up every day. This is what defines me, and I'm going to do this. I couldn't imagine myself not doing this. So it is absolutely the pig-headed, stubborn jerk of a guy that says every day, I'm a musician. But it's what makes me happy. So in turn, I'm happy for it. And that all bleeds out into my life. But it's just sheer, like, yeah, I'm just going to do this. I'm not going to give up. I'll never give up on anything. If I tell you I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. I may be really slow at it. I may be a little troubled on the way. Things are not easy, but if I say I'm going to do it, I'll try to do it,
Do you have any upcoming major goals for the music that you're doing now?
Yeah, there's always goals. That's part of yeah. I mean, how far out you want me to start a year back and work our way to date? Last Known Yeti is releasing their EP on December 8th. That's going to be a lot of fun. It sounds great. You guys are going to love it. Last Known Yeti is this interesting thing. It's this enigma. You don't know what's coming at you, and then you're getting hit with 1,000 bricks. The Molldyer album is in work. We obviously released two songs on that split EP. Last Known Yeti's also got an album coming out to match up with that EP that they're putting out. So we have December 8th, Last Known Yeti self-titled EP is coming out in January sometime, and we're not pinning down a date yet, but my birthday is January 11th, Matt, But we're trying to release the rest of that album. It's recorded, so we're aiming for when it's snowing to give you something from the Yeti. And
that's how that you would want it to be, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's got to be snow on the ground the day it releases, or I won't release it. I'll make you all wait. So that's snow on the ground in Southern Maryland.
Okay, that's a very finicky place.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to
see you
figure
guys
that
in
out.
2020. So and that project's getting wrapped up, and Molldyer's got a list of songs ready to go. We've got a full album, and it's going to be great. We're honing in on recording techniques and stuff that we're going to try for that album right now. No tentative release date as of yet, but the Molldyer album is in the work. And I'm working with a lot of other people out here. We're doing open mics. I'm playing at other people's open mics, and there's a lot of things going on. The Brass Rail has allowed us to set up some gigs there recently, it's gone well. They have a nice space, and people always have a good time. They won't let us charge, so we can't make you pay to come
Right.
see it. It's a free show. It's terrible. I know you guys hate it, but
So thinking about that, and then thinking about where the Tri-County area is, where your own music is, where your own community is, what do you want to see happen in this area the most?
yeah, some of the next levels of growth that we need to do. It's kind of hard to stand back and say, well, this is where our community is right now, because not everyone's on that same level yet. But I'm seeing a lot of different people with different mentalities, and a lot more positive vibes from everyone. It's not kill or be killed in this music industry, and you can treat it like that all you want, but you're just hurting yourself, because now that's no fun. Like, maybe you like attacking other people or plotting against people secretly. I don't think any of these bands here are really trying to do any of that stuff. I don't think that we want to have a bad day. But we're working together, and I think that the next step is the Tri-County area. We have a lot of very vested people in this music scene, and I think that they're all working to help pull everyone together. So they're meeting somebody that runs a venue in DC, or we have people that book shows in Baltimore with us all the time, and we'd like to introduce them to this other band. If we see a lot of that kind of stuff, then we're branching out of our Tri-County area, and we're still working within our Tri-County area. So we're working with the people that we're working with in this music scene, and together we're actually taking stuff from St. Mary's, from Calvert, and from Charles, and taking it up to the big city and bringing a good crowd and doing all of these things to put together better shows, where we're not letting the pay-to-play booking agencies drive our show schedule so much. They're going to call you and ask you to play on this random date, and that's fine. But if I played with a great band like Flying Jacob, they're awesome. If I played with some people that I know, Last Known Yeti gets up there and we have Shallow Deep, how many people are going to come from our little Tri-County area to go see them in the city? And maybe, shoot, the band should all get a bed and breakfast and let everyone trash it,
right,
whatever. But we can do something way bigger as a community than any one of us can do as a singular band, especially if you're letting those booking agencies run your life. Why don't we say, here's the date that we're going to play with all of these different people, and let us bring a good lineup in. You don't know any of the bands you're booking. You like them all, but you don't know who they know. So the communities, there's a great thing about that, though. The double edge of that blade is when you go and play with those bands you've never met before, you make new connections.
Yeah, and new friends and
that growth is
yeah.
important. So I'm not casting out other artists from other areas. I'm just saying that our artists down here can work together to actually bring a good crowd to that show, and I'm pretty sure that those other bands would be happy that we did that too.
Are you also conscious of I think it's a fact that there's really no one filling the gap between your generation and any kind of new generations coming in?
Absolutely. It's terrible, man. There's nothing for our children. My kids are the oldest of what would be considered our generation's kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that on purpose,
Yeah, it was definitely not a mistake.
Those boys taught me a lot, and they made me who I am. They gave me the drive that I have to succeed, and my sons have no music community that they could be part of. We played at teen centers, and we had, there was feedback. Yeah, there was a lot of feedback, but we were kids, and someone gave us a place to do that. And, at all ages were welcome, and all of these things that really mattered to little kids, you don't see anymore. So I've talked to the Great Mills High School Guitar Club. Mm-hmm. They put together a show with us at 5 South during the day on a Sunday when there was nothing going on. They were really accommodating at 5 South, and we put together a little PA and pulled some bands together. We had a couple of the adults that play around here, and the youth come out, and we had a couple bands from high school come out and play. They were awesome. Unique, but there was only one band from the high school that I think that the kids are discouraged from doing it because they don't feel like they would be accepted into something. And to me, that same community that accepted me in by my pig-headed stubbornness saved me. And now I can't see my sons ever getting an opportunity to do that unless people, we did one show. I'm talking about what's regular that your kids could go to where you would feel safe sending them. To any of the parents listening, you know what I mean. There's got to be a safe balance. You've got to be able to take them somewhere and drop them off or stay there with them, as I would do. I'd stand in the back of the room and watch the bands play all day too, But there's got to be a place where I can feel safe doing that. And right
Yeah.
now there is zilch, zero, nothing. We have like one festival every like year maybe that kids are actually
Right.
invited to. I tried to change that here in my own backyard. We had a couple parties and you know, we had bands playing and we had people to bring their kids out and they played with Nerf guns for May the 4th to celebrate Star Wars, and it's, you know, amazing legacy.
Yeah,
But the kids need that stuff.
Yeah, it's something
know?
that I think about all the time, and it's stuff that I think I've talked about on previous episodes is, you know, what I think one of the things that in the future that if we do not, so I'll say this, when I first saw, I think it was when I first saw Deadbeat Holiday play. I have known those guys since they were 14, 15, 16.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing them play for the first time in a decade was amazing. Seeing them mature, seeing them put on a whole huge show at 5 South was great. But I immediately pictured the fact that there's no new blood and there's no safe place, comfortable place for people to go and get that energy out. And what boggles my mind is that parents are still sending kids to go get guitar lessons, to get drum lessons.
Yeah.
There's Island Music in La Plata that they go to. I'm sure there's places around here, Allegra. I don't know if that's still around.
Yeah.
But you know, we have places where people are going to play music, but there's no like community anymore. So it's disappointing, and I think that's where the musicians that are here, I hope, are able to maybe think about that in the long term of things and try to figure out how to bring that up and how to get that back into where we're basically backfilling our community to where once we're gone, it doesn't just die.
Yeah, and I like that we have a couple people that emerge from the woodwork from every generation. So you still have people coming out slowly. There's a lot of things involved in that. So that kid that's taking that lesson, they're going to recite their music to their parents somewhere. They might do it at a Halloween or a high school talent show or something like that. But no one else is hearing about it. You know, and maybe they're not taught to be proud, and the stage fright is absolutely the number one artist killer. You know, you're nervous about getting and playing in front of people, and I was forever. I mean, for a lot of those 15 years, I was nervous on stage and sweating bullets. I mean, I learned to get over it, but it was I was stubborn. I'm stubborner than your average bear.
Right.
And you know, it takes a lot to work through that social anxiety to get up on stage and play in front of people. And, you know, it makes it even easier to not do anything with the art that you've been practicing when you're afraid to get up on stage and there's no place for you to actually do that anyway, so you don't have to worry about it. So where do they go and play? You know, there's open mics. Steve Nelson runs an open mic at Last Drop here right down from my house. I mean, it's nice. It's close by. Instru-Mental Records puts on a open mic at Brass Rail, and these platforms are supposed to be open to allow people to come out and play. And I see people come out that haven't played on a stage yet. And I mean, we're talking about older men and women that, I mean, some of them play a lot and they're great musicians, but some of these people come out for the first time in a long time and try to wipe the dust off of the guitar. And I wish that we had more places for them to do a proper show, an open mic, to get more used to playing in front of people. But unfortunately, a lot of people succumb to that stage fright and they don't get there. It's a certain person type. You have to enjoy being on the stage enough. You actually have to enjoy the fear. So it's going to be scary, I'm sure. Maybe this is just me, but I love the terror of stepping on stage. Like, the adrenaline rush to me to overcome that is what I enjoy so much, but that's not for everyone.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of those people that are learning how to play the guitar that don't ever want to play on stage in front of people. And there's a lot of people that write great songs and they don't want to get on stage. Maybe they'll be a songwriter for some, you know, other person and share their art still, but how do we make those connections, and are they doing that stuff? And where does the local community commune?
Yeah, and how do you build the safe space for everybody to feel comfortable enough to play?
Yeah, and screw the millennials. I'm not talking about a safe space like for your
Yeah.
emotions. Like no, is like screw you all. First of all, but what I mean is we need a safe place for artists to go up and overcome those fears. And that's exactly what it is. It's the same concept or idea, but let's not blow it out of proportion and make that a joke. Like getting on stage and playing is not the easiest thing. Like this is something that deserves a little bit of that safe space to get your bearing on what you're doing, or you'll never get there. So you've got to work through that somehow. And yeah, I mean, I like to think that that's what we have going on. Like, so I go to Brass Rail every time we do it. It's a quiet place. There's not a lot of people there. You can come out and play your stuff, and you'll have a full PA. We have monitors, so you can see what it feels like to be on a stage. We're going to put that light right in your eye, because that's where the sound guy always puts the light, is right in your eye, so that you can get temporary blinded, and you can try to look at the people in the crowd, and then you'll feel the sheer terror of being on stage. And if you love it enough, you'll overcome it. But you can't do that reciting to your family on the back porch. You know, it's a different experience. So we don't have a lot of places like that, but they are there. And I'd love to see more people coming out to them, but the two places that I just listed to you are 21 and over, and you're drinking beer. So where are the kids doing this? Just to draw it back to where the root of the problem is, the next generation is being discouraged, and they don't have a place to do this, and they have no outlets. And we're also talking about like the most emotional stages in somebody's life when they're going through teenage years and trying
where
to
you
become
want
an adult.
all that expression to come out.
And maybe that's exactly what someone needs when they're in the height of that pubescent age. Like that's probably the worst time in anyone's life, right? Like teenage years, humiliating each other,
trying to find yourself.
Kids are mean,
everything.
and teenagers are mean, and as you become an adult, things start to hurt your feelings more. So you're being mean to everyone, and you're getting your feelings hurt all the time. You know, teenagers have got it hard, and maybe music would be something that could help save some of these kids. And just to be frank, like I love my sons. Like just the notion to me that it saved me from a couple of ledges. Like it kept me ticking, or I wouldn't be here today. Music did. And then I had my kids, and they made me tick faster and harder and stronger, and did everything I could to stay afloat and to still do the things that I love. It actually took me 2 years. I don't know. I didn't say this before. My sons were born, and I raised my kids alone. Shortly after they were born, I ended up being a single father, and for about 2 years I didn't play. Daniel actually finished mastering the Ego Death album for Joy Radio on his own in the studio while I was in the house changing diapers. I mean, I did the best that I could to go out, but I didn't even go out for an entire evening until my sons were just about 2 years old. So I've always kind of kept track of it. Like I started to do things more often, but I didn't actually start going out until they were 2 years old. You know, until the point where I had moved out and had to move back home. I was living on my own, and that actually made it worse. So I was on my own with 2 kids while they were 6 months to a year and a half old. So yeah, legitimately, I didn't go out for 2 years. I didn't play music. I listened to a lot of albums then, though. I listened to a lot of good albums.